Hey guys, welcome back to this week's pool here on Comic Relief Cast. I am your host Jake,
and I'm Josh. Hey Jake, got a quick question for you.
Is it what were we doing last week?
Actually, I was going to ask, where were we last week?
Yeah, last week we just got in a bind. We had a lot to do, a lot of things going on. We just could not get around to recording. We did read a lot of comic books, but we just could not get around.
What are we reading?
And with that explanation and our bullshit excuses, guys, we are on to this week's poll, and strap in, guys. It is going to be a long one because there is a lot coming out from not just DC, which is this episode, but Marvel and everything else too. There's just a lot of comic books out this week, so we had a lot to go over, a lot of reading to do, and we are still not done. But with this episode, we are going to start right off the bat with Batman issue 60 from Tom King and Mikkel Janin. And Josh, what did you think of this one?
It was a little disappointing.
Yeah, why is that?
It kind of, Tom King's really good at like kind of setting up something pretty good and then just giving you a bullshit kind of filler issue. Yeah. And that's pretty much what this is.
Yeah, the reason we're covering Batman issue 60, it's like we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of this series because it's waxing and waning a lot. And there's just a lot of controversy behind this. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it, a lot of people are flip-flopping, kind of like me and Josh. We're kind of, we like this one, we didn't like this one. We like this one, we didn't like this one.
Yeah.
So this is an issue that I didn't really like, and really the biggest thing is that Batman's the most boring and worst part of this issue. The most interesting things are what's going on with Cobblepot and what's going on with Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, and even the art, like they do an art style change for each portion. For
anytime Batman's enters frame, it's a different artist.
Yeah, when he's interrogating people, it's a different artist, which I know Jake probably wouldn't like. I don't mind the artist, but I felt like the artist was trying too hard of trying to look like what people are into nowadays, which is this more cartoony kind of look.
Yeah, or more minimalist look.
Yeah, more minimalist look, and it just kind of throws you off a little bit. And it does make this story a little bit more boring. Now, with that being said, with that artist, I personally like the design that he does for Batman. All right, like he has the small horns on the cowl and stuff like that. But for the most part, this issue is just kind of a filler issue. It's a little boring, and you hope that you get some kind of answers, and you're really left exactly where you were before this issue.
Yeah, I will say there's a great Matina variant cover out this week for it, so that might be a book that goes up in price for any collectors out there. But yeah,
even the
Michael Janin,
yeah,
Mikkel
the
Janin.
yeah. It's actually not a bad cover. Just a regular cover is not that bad either.
No, it's good.
If you are a Penguin fan, it's a good one.
Well, if you're a Penguin fan, the Matina one's good too.
Oh yeah, especially if you're a Bane fan.
Yeah, but no, what King is, he's just slowly showing Batman's descent into madness, and is he losing his mind? Has he really lost it? And is all this stuff that's just been kind of toppling onto itself with Batman? Is he finally just kind of cracked? Is he losing it? And that's kind of what's kind of called into question here. But I do sense that there's going to be a lot of love for this book because of the reveal at the end of the book.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I do see a lot of people really digging or wanting to pick up this book because of the reveal at the end. But my problem is with like this book and with some of Tom King's stuff is he reveals these things, like these little hints throughout a storyline of things that are to come. And when they actually reveal it and confirm it, you already know what it is, but he's writing it down as if you're supposed to be surprised.
Right, it's this thing, it's like, well, here's the thing. For me, it's like he'll build up this cool reveal at the end of every book. Like at the end of a book, a great reveal will happen, and then the next issue where it's supposed to play out, it doesn't play out, or it's not very eventful. It doesn't have a lot of impact. Yeah. And I sense that's what's going to happen with this. He just kind of keeps stringing the audience along, and I sense, like I said, I'm sure that one panel will be on the internet at some point this week. People will be talking about it, wanting to pick up this book. But for me, it was not enough to make it a good read. So, unveiling this week's rating system, I'm going to go ahead and give this issue 60 2.2 Shazams.
No, 2.2 Shazams. I'm at 2.1 Shazams.
Okay,
This is weird. This is the first time that I think ever where your rating was higher than mine on a Tom King Batman.
I think it's because I appreciated the stuff going on with Penguin and Alfred.
I liked
that part. All right, moving on to Prodigy #1 from Image. It is the new Mark Millar and Raphael Albuquerque book, and this is one that I've kind of been anticipating. It was something we saw in the order form. I thought, this sounds like a cool little cool synopsis. Basically, this kid who grows up and he's just good at everything. He can do everything. He puts his mind to it. He can do it. There's really, nothing's ever stopped this guy, and life is kind of boring and dull because he can do whatever the hell he wants. Then he comes across this predicament or obstacle that he's like, this sounds like fun. I've conquered kind of everything.
Yeah, it seems complicated.
Right.
For him, and we're talking about a guy who can do open heart surgery
as a child.
As a child.
Yeah. And so he comes across this obstacle. He's like, this sounds like it could be an actual, you know, something difficult or challenging for himself. And he's like, yeah, I want to do this. And it sounds like it's going to go into a kind of a cool way. It's kind of dealing with a little bit of extraterrestrial, kind of extra space or extra dimension, stuff like that. So it's going to get a little bit into the sci-fi realm, but I like it. If you enjoy Mark Millar's style, this is kind of a classic Mark Millar feeling book, and I really like it for that.
I agree. The one thing I really do hope is I saw that the variants are for the issues are all going to be a connecting thing.
I know.
And it kind of makes me wonder if they're going to like connect all of the Millar world, and that's one thing I'm really kind of hoping for this book.
Well, you talk about extra dimensions, you never know.
Yeah, exactly. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this book. It was a fast read, and it was very enjoyable. I like the character. I think it's a cool new character that's in comic books right now.
Mark Millar does a good job. He's able to set up a backstory and a history to a character that he just is now introducing, and do it quickly and efficiently. Like, I feel like I knew this character from the beginning. You know, I got a few glimpses in the past where he is now. Didn't take much time to do it. He just has a knack, and his style just kind of complements his ability to do that. So I really like it, and it's got, you know, it's adult. It's not too far outside the realm of possibility. It does feel like something I'd say maybe superior would be something of his works that I would kind of liken this to so far. So with that, I'm going to give Prodigy issue 1 a 3.7 Shazams.
I'm at 3.5 Shazams.
All right. Moving on to Justice League number 13, or Legion of Doom, and in this issue, it's kind of the reason I'm wanting to cover it is because it's kind of in the fallout of Drowned Earth. And I wanted to see if there's anybody out there who read Drowned Earth who felt like this was a necessary read. I can scrub that right off the bat for you and tell you, no, this is not a necessary read. If you read Drowned Earth, this is not kind of the fallout or the denouement of that book. It's just kind of starting its own thing. It's starting to pick up where Luthor and Grodd and Cheetah and Joker, what they've been kind of doing behind the scenes of the whole Justice League book. And this is by far my favorite issue of this Justice League series. How did you feel about it, Josh?
I agree. I think it is. Yeah, you got me at the wrong time. Sorry, guys. I agree. I'm not a huge fan of this Justice League run, but this is definitely my favorite issue. When Tynion is writing on it, it is a lot better. And this issue is very interesting. If you are a Joker fan or a Batman Who Laughs fan, this is going to be a good pickup for you because it's a good Joker storyline. And it shows a cool, and even if you're a Lex Luthor fan, this is a really cool Lex Luthor. It is very much like a reveal of Tony Stark in Iron Man 3, where you find out that he's more than just, you know, behind the mask. Yeah, more than just a rich guy. There's more to him than that. But it was definitely a fun read. The art,
I dig the art.
The art, yeah, it's weird. It took me a minute to kind of understand if I did like it or not.
March. He's the artist, Gilliam March.
But the one thing I do like is I love the way he draws Joker. There's a few panels of Joker in this that is the best one of the best Jokers I've ever seen. And then when it comes to drawing Lex Luthor, he does a great Lex Luthor. So it's one thing with artists that try to draw the way that this artist draws. When it comes to drawing, you know, people who just look like a normal person, they don't do a very good job at it, and he does.
Yeah, a few points I wanted to highlight in this book is, one, this is not my favorite rendition of the Joker, but this is a version of the Joker I really, really like. There's a cold, calculating version of Joker. Yeah, he's about chaos, but you realize he has a lot in common with Lex Luthor in the sense that he plans ahead. This is a guy who is not without a plan, and it's not something that I ever really think too much about. I don't associate it that much with Joker, but in this book, I really like that aspect of it. And again, it's not my favorite version of Joker, but it's a fresh take on Joker from what I feel like I've been reading recently in comic books. And the other thing I definitely wanted to highlight is that if anybody is planning on picking up the Batman Who Laughs, this is actually what I would consider this a prelude to it, because they do mention there's a few things going on here that I assume is going to play out in the Batman Who Laughs, and there's also a solicitation for a couple pages of that book. There's a preview in the back of this book of the Batman Who Laughs.
Also, they say that next time that the next time you see Joker, it's going to be in the Batman Who Laughs. And I agree. The Joker in this is really good. I feel like we very rarely see this side of Joker where he kind of knocks back on the chaos and, you know, enjoying just the chaos of everything. And you find out, like, you don't fuck with Joker, because Joker is a lot, he's more cunning than what you think.
Right, and this issue felt very much like a survival mode for him. He's very much looking out for in his own interest, because Luthor was kind of planning on betraying him, and Joker was like, yeah, I see what you're trying to do, Luthor. I'm 2 steps ahead of you already, and in order to save my own skin, I'm doing this. And I thought, awesome, man.
Great.
It's a great version of Joker. Again, it's not the most well written or the smartest, but it is a great book. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna give Legion of Doom or Justice League issue 13. I'm gonna give it 3.65 Shazams. I really enjoyed this book.
3.75 Shazams.
All right,
man. We're not too far off from each other today.
No,
I can't wait for that happens.
Yeah, DC has some really good offerings this week.
Yeah,
they really do. All right, and then a new issue 1 coming out. It's from Hard Case Publishing. It's called Breakneck by Dwayne Swarzinski, and the artwork is by Simone Guglielmini and Raphael Semorano. Sorry, they're big names, but. Anyway, what this is kind of what I assumed when I read the synopsis and from the cover. I thought this is kind of a 1940s noir type of book. That's what the cover, if you look up, it's what it kind of looks like. What you find out is it's more of a... In Philadelphia, it's this guy whose wife, he feels like is cheating on him, so he goes to confront the guy that she cheated on him with, and it turns out to be a completely different situation than he thought going in, and the way it plays out is very interesting. It doesn't take itself too seriously, where at the beginning I thought it might do that, but it has a little bit of fun with it as well. And actually, I read the back of the book, and this is actually a novel that the writer was working on. He's done some screenplays. He's done a treatment for it for Hollywood and stuff like that, but he's like, the way I want to do this is in comic book form, and I really enjoyed this book. I had a lot of fun with it.
I love this book. This is actually probably one of my favorite reads from the indie or DC titles. It was very fun. It felt very lifelike. It read very smooth. Except for if you get the variant, there is a printing error where you get
giant printing error. Yeah.
So I would keep an eye out on that book. But
if there's a chick strapped to a bed on the cover, maybe pick that up. Never know what happens to it. But terrible printing error.
But it reads smooth, and it reads a lot like where you go, okay, this was meant to, like, this feels like a screenplay. It feels
the cover of it kind of reminded me a little bit of Bad Times at the El Royale, which is one of the reasons I wanted to pick it up.
Yeah, but it was a great read, and it's a big book, and also another thing too, it's from Titan Comics, not Hard Case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. It's
Titan Comics.
Hard Case. I'm sure Titan is the printing and publisher.
Oh yeah, it's the printing and publisher, and Hard Case could probably be
kind of like a production.
Yeah, like an imprint. But no, this book was fun. I loved it. I thought it felt very. The one thing I like from comic books, and I realized this lately, is the more relatable, like I think everybody feels the same way, the more relatable I am to the content, and it's part of the reason why a lot of times, like with the cosmic stuff, I'm a little, edged away from it.
Right.
But this felt real. It felt good. It was easy to read. It was a fun read, and even though with how big this book is, it went by pretty fast.
It did. I pretty much gonna echo everything you said. I love this book, so I'm not gonna waste too much time. It is a $5.99 price point though, but I don't feel that as a deterrent for me. Like,
you get 2 comic books in this at least.
Exactly. It's a part 1 and a part 2 in this book. Out of I think 5 parts is what I'm thinking it's gonna be.
I think it is. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, and so I think for the price, it sounds a little steep, but it's a really well done book. Art's great, writing is great, characters really well done, really well fleshed out. And you can't help but kind of side with the main character, but also at the same time feel like he's kind of an asshole. So I like that feeling. So with that, I'm going to give this book 3.8 Shazams. I really
I'm a little above you. I'm at 4.1 Shazams.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was one of my favorite reads. And like
I'm surprised. It's one of the books that I picked out thinking,
I didn't think I was going to like it, really. I was like hesitant on reading it.
All right, going on to Green Arrow, issue 47 by J. Benson, S. Benson, and I think it's Jorge Peralta. I can't remember. No, German Peralta. I don't know. There's so many of these names I just don't know how to pronounce anymore. Julie Benson, Shauna Benson, German Peralta is the artist. This is continuing on with the series, or with the little mini arc of The Citizen, who is actually revealed in the last issue to be a local police officer with Seattle, and he's putting the 1% on trial for their crimes, for being greedy or corrupt or whatever, and basically the population who gets to watch this live feed gets to vote whether or not to execute these guys, and this time he gets a hold of Oliver Queen. And it just goes to show that Green Arrow is still one of the most consistently great comics coming out of DC, and with this Alice Maleev cover, with a great variant cover.
Carrie Andrews, yep.
Yep, this is one of the best offerings from DC consistently every time it comes out.
Yeah, this is one of those books, man, it's underappreciated too. It is consistently have been good. I think they only had probably like 2 issues that were a little
You
slow.
say that every time.
Yeah, I know, I do. But like other than that, I mean, this has been a consistently good book. I've never had a story or an issue of this that I felt was bad.
Right. And I will say that this book, with its commentary, it can be a little on the nose, but it walks a very fine line where I don't feel like, okay, yeah, this is very relevant. I can associate it with what just happened in the news this day or that day or this event. You know, I do see the parallels, and I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's intentional on the writer's part, but I don't feel like it detracts from the story for me, because I know Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, has always been kind of that bleeding heart liberal, you know, ever since the 60s in the comic books. He was kind of one of the, you know, protest diehards, bleeding hearts, I should say. So with that, I don't mind it in this book at all. It doesn't feel forced. It feels very much in character with Oliver Queen. And what I want to say real quick before I let you go is that Oliver Queen feels like the hero America kind of needs right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I love that they even bring the fact that, like, you're not a good hero, you're not a good vigilante, you have no powers, who the fuck do you think you are, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I love that attitude, and I love how Ollie's just always kind of smirking in the face of that.
Yeah, and one thing too is, like, with what you were saying about how, like, he's kind of on the nose with on the nose with the political stuff. I feel like when you pick up a Green Arrow book, that's what you're going to expect. That's what you actually should want out of a Green Arrow book.
Right.
And there for a while we didn't have that for a Green Arrow book. You know, dealing with like Kevin Smith's, like a little bit of Kevin Smith's run on Quiver, and you get to like Lemire's. Great runs, but still, we kind of went away from that 1970s Green Arrow, and it's kind of weird that it still feels relevant to have that kind of character still running about. And then when you actually kind of go, we need more people like this in this time. And I think that's another reason why this book is so good.
And I think it's also why it's resonating.
Yeah, and I love this villain, and that's we said this last time when this book came out. I don't understand why there isn't a bigger hype on this villain.
I don't either. I don't understand why there's not a bigger hype on the book in general.
Well, both those. But like that villain, like that is a really interesting and cool villain to be to create at this time.
It feels real. It doesn't feel like a super villain. It feels like something that could actually happen. I mean, everyone's got access to live feeds on their phone. You can stream live video from your phone. I mean, what's really preventing some guy like the Citizen from coming out and happening? Yeah, right. I mean, Anonymous, I don't.
He's not the same thing, but you know.
But no, it's a great run, and it's funny because I had a customer come in last week or maybe 2 weeks ago saying he wanted a Green Arrow run that felt more like the Arrow TV series, and I go, yeah, this is not for you.
But then you pointed him Batman, right?
I did. I was like, I said, this is for real Green Arrow fans. I'm sorry, but anyway.
Well, it's funny too because we had one customer come in saying about the same thing, only but he was talking about how he didn't want to get on Green Arrow because he didn't like what the Green Arrow was nowadays. Like, he wanted a Green Arrow that, like, you know, back in Neil Adams' Green Arrow.
Oh, really?
You know, and I'm like, oh, well, you've been missing out because that's what this is.
Yeah.
Like,
so with that, I'm going to go ahead and give this book 3.75 Shazams. Really enjoyed it. Really had a good time with it.
3.75 Shazams.
Okay, moving on to the highly controversial, highly anticipated, once every 2 month book, Doomsday Clock, issue 8. Big question here is, because I've been shitting on this series every issue that's come out, big question is, how do I feel about this book, Josh? And I'm going to tell you, this is my favorite issue of Doomsday Clock.
So, not very much, right?
I really, really enjoyed this book, and I can't help but notice it had nothing to do with the Watchmen. Had nothing to do with the Watchmen characters, had nothing to do with Jeff Johns trying to imitate the Alan Moore stylings, and
also had nothing to do with Doomsday Clock in general.
It didn't. It was just a straight up DC book that kind of hinted at this whole Superman project, or what do they call it in the book?
Superman theory.
Superman theory, right? How like 97% of the world's metahumans are coming out of the United States, and how, you know, their government's been churning out characters like that. And I really enjoyed this book, and holy shit, Gary Frank's pencils just pop in this book. More than any other book out of Doomsday Clock, this is just him at the top of his game, and I think it feels like he really wanted to do this. It felt like he poured love and interest in this book, whereas before I didn't get that feeling from him. This book has so much action and motion. It feels like it's got a lot of fluidity. It just reads a lot more like a movie than it does a comic book at times. And this is by far one of the best issue of Doomsday Clock in my opinion. And I wish this were the series we were getting up until this point.
Yeah, I wasn't going to read this and review this, but then Jake was like really excited about it. Told me that I was going to miss out if I didn't read it. So I went ahead and read it so I could review for you guys.
After your vow not to read anymore.
I completely agree. It is definitely the best issue of Doomsday Clock, but with that being said, I got to sit here and think that this title is Doomsday Clock and that it is supposed to be this event. And
time is running out.
Time is running out. This is issue 8, and we're about to hit the issue 12, and I still, like, we don't know what the conflict is. What is this event even about?
No.
This book does nothing to actually help this event.
I don't know.
Not trying to trash on this book, because it is a good book. This is a good...
You're talking about the series as a whole.
But I'm talking about a series as a whole, and this is the reason why I didn't want to read and review this, because I feel like maybe if I just wait and then read the whole thing in one lump sum, then I'll understand it better as an event. But it just doesn't... Yeah, I mean, this was a good book if you're just reading it by, like, just a standalone thing.
I think this book is touching on some of the Doomsday Clock stuff that we're
I mean,
not
it
really
is touching
paying
a little
attention
bit.
to. Like,
it's
the
clearly
Superman theory,
is.
whatever Batman's kind of hinting at, or what he kind of knows about.
The Superman theory, the place that Black Adam has where the metahumans are
Kahndaq,
going, yeah. Like, that all is hitting on to Doomsday Clock, and yes, we do see a little Doomsday Clock in there. But the thing is, though, it's still not really, like, by this point, we should know what what is the conflict?
I can tell you what the conflict is, man. Just look at the United States and Russia right now, because Vladimir Putin is actually in this book.
Right?
And I don't know if you know this, but he has this thing where his likeness is not allowed to be copied in literature unless he writes off on it. He wrote off on this book. They had to approach him about this book first, and he wrote off on it. So
I mean, if it's good for Putin, then it might be good for us,
right? And you know, it's got his stance in this book is very anti-American. So I think it's okay. I think it's kind of telling he wrote off on this book. But no, I really enjoyed this. Like I said, this is Gary Frank at his absolute best.
I will also throw this out there. If you're a person who never found Firestorm to be that interesting, you'll find him to be interesting.
This is the best rendition of Firestorm in a long time.
Right?
Screw that whole nuclear winter special thing. But the other thing I will say about this as I wrap it up is feels like the thinnest book out of the Doomsday Clock. This feels like there's not a lot in here. This feels like the skimpiest version of Doomsday Clock issue I've had so far. But with that, I'm going 3.9 Shazams on this book. Really dug it.
I'm at 3.75 Shazams.
Okay, all right. Going on to the much anticipated for me, Green Lantern issue 2 from Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp, and this one is what the way I can best describe this book so far in the first 2 issues is it feels like the cosmic space version of like a Law and Order episode so far. And that's not a bad thing. Yeah, Law and Order can get cheesy, it can get really ridiculous and off the rails at times. Believe me, I've seen enough of those reruns with my parents growing up, but this does feel like that. It's setting up the villains, it's setting up their little side quests, but it also is what it's doing is it's letting Hal Jordan be a cop. It's letting him be in the interrogation room. It's letting him ask questions. It's letting him trying to figure out what's going on. You know, where are these people? What's their plan? Help me kind of track them down. It's like the beat cop stuff, and that's something that we have. Green Lantern's been missing for a long time. Since Blackest Night, everything has gotten blown. It's big spectacle. It's big, just big. You know what I mean? This is really narrowing it down, kind of putting Hal under the microscope and going, how does he function as a policeman, I guess, space cop? And I really dig it.
I agree. And the one thing and I said this with the last issue, and with it being an issue 2, that kind of confirms that it's going to have that feel for probably the majority of this run. But the one thing I really like about this, and even with Liam Sharp on the artwork, I'm not a huge fan of Liam Sharp, but
it works.
When you read it with the way the story goes, it works. It has that old school 1970s Green Lantern feel.
It does.
And that's one thing with me. I used to always get, like, you know, my uncles used to always hand me like old Green Lantern books. We'd go to garage sales. I'd get old Green Lantern books. And that was the Hal Jordan that I liked, was the 1970s and 1980s like Hal Jordan, where it's not like this whole big, huge cosmic space stuff. I do like Jeff Johns' run, and I do like Blackest Night, but the thing is like it just kind of grew to being this huge cosmic thing, and I miss police, you know, space cop Hal Jordan. And I'm getting that back. And then with the artwork, it fits it perfectly. I love the fact, the other thing too is like you even get these like different lanterns that are kind of goofy looking, but that's the way the old, you know, Green Lantern was. You always had some kind of goofy, different kind of lantern that didn't make sense. But yeah, I dig this book. And I think this is going to be a good Green Lantern run.
Yeah, I'm really digging like the whole feel of this book, and I like how it feels like at times this might be crossing over with other titles, like especially with Martian Manhunter, which we will be going over tonight. If there are a couple characters I go, is that a Martian? Is that a Martian? I'm kind of waiting to see if this ties in, but then also the very end of this book, I'm like, does this tie into the Superman book? You know,
I was thinking the same
kind
thing.
of the end of with how it ended and stuff like that. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out. It does feel like it's going to be a slow burn. This is going to be a story that gets built up and built up and built up. So it's one of those things I think you need to pay attention. But the other thing too is I think Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp too are both having a lot of fun with this book. Like they know they can get cosmic, they know they can get goofy. There's all sorts of different alien species and stuff out there. So Liam Sharp's allowed to just go nuts on his character designs, and Grant Morrison, he's allowed to add a little bit of science behind some of the weirdness of these character designs. So I really like it. This issue specifically though, it's just an issue 2. Again, I think it's a slow burn. I think it's going to be going somewhere, and I'm looking forward to where it goes. For this issue, I'm going to give it 3.3 Shazams.
I'm at 3.5 Shazams.
Okay. Moving on to Martian Manhunter #1 by Steve Orlando. Is that right? Steve Orlando?
Yep.
Yeah. And I hate when they don't put the damn names on the interior of the book, but it's Rossimo. I think that's the artist.
Rossimo.
Rossimo, yeah. So what this is not what I expected this book to be. It's got some interesting parts, but my biggest deterrent is the artwork. And it's because the art style makes it very hard for me to want to take this book seriously. What's going on? There are some moments of gore and grotesqueness, some really weird moments, like we see a lovemaking scene with John and his wife that was just really, really strangely illustrated.
Erotic.
Not erotic in any way. It's just very strangely illustrated. I go, okay, apparently that's how Martians do the deed, but it had some good moments, but again, it's the weird, exaggerated, minimalistic look of the art. It makes it hard for me to want to grab onto these characters. And the other thing too that Orlando does is he has spoken dialogue running concurrently with telepathic dialogue happening between people. So it's really hard. It's like two different conversations are happening at once, and I had a hard time following it at points. But how did you feel, Josh?
I liked it. I was hoping I'd like it more than what I thought, because it's the same thing. It wasn't exactly what I thought. But me and you are in this disagreement with Rossimo. I kind of dig his artwork. I don't dig...
It's very cartoony.
It's very cartoony. He did like Cave Carson and stuff like that. This is definitely a book that if you are a fan of the DC Young Animals, that you probably end up liking it. I'm not just saying it because he's on this and he did some DC Young Animal stuff, but it definitely feels like it should have been under that imprint. I don't like his artwork though when it comes to these, like it's like you get these scenes where it's supposed to be, I guess like a few years ago, and John is a police officer and he's in disguise and he's on Earth. And it doesn't really fit very well for like the way the humans like look and everything. But when you get to like when he's thinking back in his past, when he's on Mars,
right,
it looks really good.
Yeah, it fits a lot more.
It fits better there. It fits really good there. And I understand now, like once you get to those pages where he starts thinking back on those time periods, you go, okay, now that's the reason why they got this artist to do this book. I did like the book. It did have some good concepts. One thing that I will say that really hurts the book for me is exactly what you're saying. The telepathic dialogue and the actual dialogue going on at the same time makes it a little hard to follow at times.
Yeah. I will say what is one neat thing is that they do give a little bit of an explanation as to why he has the moniker Manhunter, why he's Martian Manhunter. They do briefly touch on that. I'm sure they'll touch a bit on it a little bit more. And how, shape-shifting maybe isn't really shape-shifting the way we thought it was. It seems to be he's trying to rewrite that idea. But the other thing, too, is I could not help but notice that Tom King gives a little bit of love to Orlando here in the beginning. Brilliant, bold, and bloody, blah, blah, blah. And it does feel like at times Orlando's doing his best at like a Tom King impression, like with Mr. Miracle or something, I did have a little bit of that feel to it.
Little like that mixed with like the Vision series that Tom King did. Yeah,
so I go, okay, is he doing his own thing or is he trying his best to imitate something that maybe he thinks is smarter than it really is? I think only time will tell. It's only a 12-issue series. For $3.99 for an issue 1, I don't think you can beat it. I'd say pick it up just to see how it grabs you, if it interests you in picking up more. If you just say, hey, yeah, I picked up issue 1, not really for me, at least you got the issue 1. But
yeah, I mean, and the cover for issue 1 and the variant cover, they're beautiful covers. They're great covers.
For that, though, I'm giving it 2.95 Shazams. this is probably my least favorite reads out of DC, and that's saying something because I still enjoyed that book.
Yeah, I give it a 3.2. I liked it a little bit more, but obviously it's going to be because I actually dig that artist.
And as we talked about it, I read it straight after reading Doomsday Clock, so I go
Which
from
is
Gary
rough.
Frank's art,
Yeah.
and then I go to Rossmo, and I go, Jesus, this is just a jarring change.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be somewhat of a change, so I made sure that I lined it up kind of nicely.
Yeah, if you would have lined it up with maybe, I don't even know. Out of DC this week, I don't think anything artistically is along those lines.
Yeah.
But all right, moving on to the big issue, the one that's finally out, the one I'm sure a lot of people are
The one that
putting on
got
this.
pushed back and everybody
Yeah.
was bummed.
The one that I think everyone might be curious about, Shazam #1 from Jeff Johns and Dale Eaglesham. And, it's continuing on the 2011 4-issue thing from New 52. Question on everybody's minds, is it follow it up? Is it good? How does it continue? Is it worth picking up? Josh, what do you think?
Well, it follows up after that Shazam run, about a year after that, and I think it is. It is a very humble, a very family-friendly, just good time read. It is a good book, and it's a perfect book to be around this time because it just kind of fills you with I don't want to say joy because that sounds really stupid, but like it does kind of fill you up with a little joy. The one thing I really do appreciate about this book is if you haven't read that run, which we do have the first couple of trades here in the shop, or the first trade, but we got a couple of copies of it. It does give you a nice little rundown of what happens in that 4-issue run. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay with my belated anticipation on this.
Yeah, it's maybe not going to blow your socks off if you've been waiting in high anticipation, going, I can't wait to get it. You're salivating at the mouth to get it. It's not going to really quench that thirst. It is a good book, but it's not the most eventful issue. Things happen, it's fun, but it's kind of just setting the groundwork again. They're treating it as if you didn't read the last one, so you can jump on this and not be lost. You'd be just fine jumping on right here, not having read the last 4 issues. But if you did, it just enhances your read a bit. What I got was, one, there's a little bit of a Spider-Man Homecoming ripoff that I think was fine. I don't look at it and go, boo you. I thought it was fine. The other thing is, it's weird. I got a little bit of a Power Rangers vibe from this because there's the whole Marvel family, right? They all have their different color scheme. They all have their different power sets, kind of, and they all can't really decide on what the team's going to be called. But it is a fun family book. There's a good dynamic amongst the characters. What I will say I found truly interesting is the end of this book. The way it ends is a big question mark for me, and it's not the Mary Marvel ending that's got her own little quick origin story. What it is this right here that I'm going to point out to Josh and go, what does this mean?
Oh man, you guys should see this.
Oh man, what does this mean? How is this going to play out? I'm going to guess that it's not what we think, and it's going to actually lead to the conflict of this book because everything was a little bit too happy-go-lucky. Nothing was going wrong. This is what I think is going to lead into the what's wrong, what's the obstacle, and what do they have to overcome. But no, it was a good book, and I think Eaglesham, he does a good job of taking over the reins from Gary Frank. Their styles they're similar enough where you wouldn't really notice a big change in the artwork.
Yeah, just a little bit lighter tone.
Yeah, but I think it's fun, and I think it's right on the cusp of being just in time for the Shazam movie coming out in April. So I think it's well timed, and I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah, I agree. I think the conflict is. At the end, the problem at the end, it does have me a little interested. The one thing was when we were reading the synopsis, I was a little worried. The one thing I really like about Jeff Johns' Shazam run was with the 4-issue thing. It was fun. It was humble. It had points where it really kind of hit you right there and pulled on the heartstrings, but it also had these really kind of deep moments. And this one, when I read the synopsis, I was like, this is going to be just Jeff Johns having fun and not really having to think too hard. And then I start reading this issue, and I'm like, you know what though? If this is how he's going to write it, and that's the case, then good for him because it's good. It's a fun book. It is very. It's a very a good family, family book.
Right, and like I said, there's not a whole lot of
nothing big eventful or nothing.
Right, there's no antagonist in this book. There's no real dire situations
There's
happening.
no deep moments in
I think
it, really.
they're building. This is just an early issue 1. It does feel like maybe you could have put out something a little bit more impactful, make a bit of a bigger splash with your issue 1, especially 6-7 years in between the last time they did a Shazam book and now. Yeah, you probably could have made a bigger splash, but it's not an offensive read. It doesn't let you down. It just makes you go, okay, they're building something up. Maybe like the Grant Morrison run. It's going to be slowly building towards something. We'll have to see what happens with the issue 2. But with this one, we got our rating system from this book. I'm going to give this one 3.35 Shazams. I liked it. Wasn't my favorite read, but I'm looking forward to more because I think Jeff Johns can do a lot with this book. But I will say the $4.99 as opposed to Martian Manhunter $3.99 makes me go, why'd you do that? It seems like there's about the same amount of content, if not actually a little bit more in Martian Manhunter.
I'm actually a little bit above. Yeah, I'm at 3.75 Shazams. Yeah, I just at first I was a little bummed, like what you were talking about. There was nothing really impactful to it, but after reading it, I felt good. It was a good book. It was just very heartwarming.
Yeah, sure. All right, guys, well, that is all we have for you for this episode. We know it was a long one. There was a lot to read. There's a lot for Marvel, so make sure to check out that video. But please hit that like button, guys. Let us know if you liked any of these. You liked our reviews. Did we, encourage you to pick any other books up that you weren't planning on picking up? Did we deter you from picking up any books that you thought you were going to pick up? Comment below. Let us know. And, of course, share this with any of your comic reading friends. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, we hit over 800 subscribers. Then we decided not to put any videos up because we thought, hey, we can't go any higher. So, we're at peak
Didn't you use that joke on the last podcast on Friday?
All right, guys, that's all we got for you this week. We will see you probably Friday with the weekly web up. Take care.